everyone, welcome to the Field and Garden Podcast. I'm Jessie from the Gardener's Workshop. Today I'm sharing a recent Clubhouse where Lisa talks about the wonderful world of cosmos. She covers common questions about how to grow them, details about the varieties she's currently growing, and the very important topics of harvesting and post-harvest handling. Cosmos are a late season tender annual, and they come in lots of fun colors. We hope you enjoy this chat and consider giving Cosmos a spot in your garden or cut flower field.
Welcome everybody to the Flower Farmer Show. My name is Lisa Mason Ziegler, and our co-host here today is Jessie Graven. And Jessie is one of our team members and is also a flower farmer. And thank you, Jessie, for being here so much. You make our experience so much better all the way around for me and for our guests here that we're hosting. And I'm looking forward to talking about cosmos because I have a newfound appreciation for cosmos is what I wanted to share today. But before we get started with that, I want to invite everybody. We have a new live shopping show, and that actually is premiering on our new phone app. That's right. The Gardener's Workshop has a phone app, and you can go to your app store, whether you have a Droid or an iPhone, and search Gardener's Workshop Live Shop and download that for the best experience. And then join us on Fridays at 12 noon Eastern Time for an hour of fun, y'all. We are sharing the flowers that are blooming on the farm, giving tips and offerings, and there's always special offers that aren't available anywhere else. And I would love to have you join us on that. And so I really just wanted to tell everybody that I know it's heating up. I'm already hearing from people that they're overwhelmed. And I just want to say, hold on, friends. We're all suffering from something. And just know that you're not alone, and we'll just link arms and go through it together. And so cosmos are a flower that when we went into our high production years, which ended about 3 years ago, for about 8 years before that. And when I say high production, we were pumping out 10 to 15,000 stems of flowers a week from the field for about 5 months of the year. And when you're in high production, you do not have time to fuss or give extra care. Those flowers just kind of fall off of your radar because they're just too needy. And it's not that they're more needy than they need to be. That's just that they needed additional steps. And those were steps that we just weren't in the position. So I've been spending the last 3 years really reintroducing a lot of those flowers that I just allowed to fall away. And lo and behold, we started 2 years ago bringing back cosmos. My sister, who has been our head bouquet maker for all these years, that was one of her first requests when we dropped supermarkets. And we were doing our members only market there on the farm, which is a dedicated group of people, as well as our bouquet subscriptions, that she felt like that the cosmos could really bring yet another level of soft beautifulness back to our bouquets like nothing else really could. So that sent me down the road. And so I'm just going to share the way that we use them, how we grow them, and then how I have found to use them in bouquets to get the longest last out of them. So first off, cosmos are warm season tender annuals. So you treat them basically like a zinnia or a tomato or a basil. They like it warm. We succession plant them. We actually, believe it or not, I saw like a handful of blooms in the Cosmo bed yesterday. I've got about a 60-foot bed of cosmos planted, all the different varieties. Well, actually, the bed that's planted only has about 10 of our varieties, but we have the second succession of cosmos, which are in trays that we just moved them outdoors. They'll be going into the ground probably in the next 2 weeks or so. And then we will start them yet again. So we are still in wide open cosmos starting season, and we do start them in the small blocker, and we do it just like we do zinnias. We just kind of poke the seeds kind of long and skinny. We just kind of poke it in, right? Cosmos do best for the best repeat of blooming into full sun. I always get asked, well, what about if it's just morning sun? A lot of these plants will actually grow in lower sunlight situations, but where you fall into troubles is they don't regrow quite so quickly because they aren't getting, sunshine just moves the plant along. So full sun is actually what is best. And something that may or may not be of interest to this group of people is that butterflies love cosmos. So I don't think any of us object to seeing butterflies flitting around our garden. And that's actually what people think a flower farm is all about, right? Beautiful flowers and butterflies and all those beautiful things, that whole experience. So cosmos are a real favorite of them, and they come in a whole bunch of colors. And I mentioned earlier that if you haven't checked out the May issue of Better Homes and Garden, on the cover, which it's, not very often that flowers alone make the cover of any magazine, much less Better Homes and Garden, is the top dog in that world, right? Um, so I was so thrilled for Marty Ross. Marty is a garden writer. She writes for all the magazines. That's how I met her 20 years ago when she came to do an article on our little cutting garden and for country gardens. And the cover of the Better Homes and Garden really shows a lot of the different flowers. But you can also see them if you hit the all cosmos seeds that Jessie has posted here. There's a really good display of them. So let's talk about planting them. So we start them in the small blocker, and we plant them out when they're about 4 weeks old. And you can pinch them in the tray. We do it in soil blocks. I did it for this first planting. We just had gotten the ground that's actually on the verge of blooming now. I actually pinched back half of that bed after they were planted. And it's really going well. I have some great results. So, comes in lots of colors. We start it from seed in the small blocker. We plant them out when they're 4 weeks old. Cosmos are not a really big fan of fertilization. In fact, I kind of steer away from even fertilizing them when they're in the tray, because what happens if you over fertilize cosmos is they will produce the most beautiful foliage you've ever seen, but you'll never get a bloom. So I just kind of go cold turkey on with them, on the fertilization at all, and that helps to alleviate that problem. And here's one of the things that I learned about cosmos is cosmos, very much like dahlias, really start to put on the dog. They really put their hat on and put the show on as the days start to get shorter after midsummer. So that's why it is so important to succession plant, because you want a nice new crop that's just on the brink, as it's going into fall, to really get that super great show of those blooms. They bloom all summer, but I will definitely tell you they seem to step it up once the days start to shorten. I do find that netting is beneficial for cosmos because they're quite tall. All it takes is one torrential rain to lay them all down, especially if you fertilized them. They really have soft stems, but their stems are not always the most reliable when challenging environmental conditions kind of flare up. And so if you didn't pinch them, like the side of my bed that is now blooming, and I have to tell y'all, I was going to look on my desktop here. I think it was Rubenza. That is the really dark color. They call it raspberry, I think. That one is one of the ones that's blooming. Y'all, I'm going to tell you, the bloom is bigger than the palm of my hand. I was so incredibly anxious and excited to see that thing. I cannot wait to start cutting them. So the plants that were not pinched, I am going to cut that first central stem, and I'm going to go way deep and I'm going to cut right above, 3 or 4 or 5 side shoots, to encourage those side shoots to grow straight up, strong and tall, just like we do zinnias. The very same thing. And then I am going to strip pretty much everything except for the flower and a few little fronds of foliage at the very, very top. Now, when it's time to cut those pinched plants, I'm going to actually just go down to the base of the stem that I'm cutting, because the central stem has already been removed early on, right? Um, so that's where I'm going to make the cut. When am I going to make the cut? The best stage to cut a Cosmo to get the longest show is just as it's just beginning to crack. And you really need to experiment with this. You need to go out to your Cosmo patch and cut at what you think is, the earlier you cut it, the longer it's going to be present in a bouquet. Before it opens, it adds texture. It adds another plateau of interest to a bouquet. So you need to discover what is the very earliest that you can cut it, that it'll stay hydrated and not go limp, and then continue to open and has good size to it. I'm always looking to cut it as early as possible with the best possible end result. And so that's what you need to figure out for you. So you need to cut some at different stages, and see how it develops. You may have to wait. And then the other thing that cutting them early really does is it prevents cucumber beetles. Are a big old fan of Cosmos also. And so they can really damage the petals just like they do sunflowers. So getting them, so you just need to learn in your environment, meaning mainly your heat and humidity, what is the earliest in the opening stage of the flower? Can you cut it with great success? So I try to cut them early, and then I cut them into, all of our buckets has CVBN tablets. That's the chlorine tablet. However, Cosmos do not require that. That was actually a question I got earlier at Ask a Flower Farmer. Was, they thought they'd been told that the Cosmos dirty the water, which is what that dirty dozen, the dirty dozen flowers are those flowers that pollute the water more than other flowers. And of course, those are zinnias and marigolds and sunflowers and stock and yarrow and snapdragons and lots of others. But to my knowledge, Cosmos are not a member of that. But we put CVB in all of our buckets to keep it simple, and so it doesn't hurt them. And I will add that you can also use a hydrator if your Cosmos are wimpy. Now, if your Cosmos are wimpy, meaning wilty, there's several reasons why that can happen. Over-fertilization, cutting at the wrong time of the day, cutting too early in the stage, and then not stripping enough foliage. So there's several. So if you exhaust all those possibilities and you're still having wilting, I definitely would recommend cutting them early in the morning. Then you can use a hydrator in the bucket if you just can't get it to hydrate properly with the regular steps. And so we just put literally a splash of Quick Dip, which is a hydrator, which is made to be used ready-made. It's like you just pour it in a little saucer and dip. But we have found that putting a splash, which is I have figured out about 2 tablespoons, into the bucket of those flowers that tend to be wimpy. That could be hydrangeas, possibly. That could be rudbeckias. That could be basil. So some of those, and so we only do it though once we realize, all right, we're having a problem, because if I follow the normal steps that we're supposed to follow, normally they don't have that problem. So the buckets just get CVB in, and then just regular flower food when they actually make it to their end vase. And I just find them to add such. People love Cosmos. And you'll even find that, like in our members only market, when we started growing more, we never grew in volume enough that somebody felt like they could come in and say, oh my gosh, just give me 20 stems of Cosmos as my bouquet, if they didn't pick them out themselves. Because there is just nothing quite like it. And the beauty of that article that Marty wrote for Better Homes and Garden really shows some of that. And I mean, we need to market them like we do sweet peas. I mean, sweet peas only last about 5 to 7 days in the vase, but it's the best 5 to 7 days of your flower life. And I believe that cosmos are right up there with it. So you want to know what I was just seeing while we were talking there a minute ago, that cosmos, along with some other fall bloomers, which, believe it or not, y'all, is marigolds, are called the October birth flowers. And they're called that. It's marigolds and cosmos are annuals that really thrive in the fall. And it's because of their short love of the short days just trigger them to really get busy. And then the other little tidbit, it says that cosmos are a symbol of order, peace, and serenity. And the name cosmos came from the Greek word cosmos, meaning order, harmony. So anyway, those are just random things that I saw here. Do you have any
That's
other
cool.
questions?
I do. I had one on the back channel. Someone had asked if there was a specific variety or type of cosmos that you would recommend for someone who is just starting out with them.
Sure. So if you go to our website and look, I will tell you that, and I haven't posted a picture online yet. I have all 14 of the varieties that we offer. It's different. It's not 14 different varieties. It's several varieties in an array of colors, mixes, as well as the solid colors, which we found to be very useful to just be able to have the solid colors. And I will be real honest with you, I have found them all to be equally easy to start, and just such great success. And I tell you, the one I was the most excited to start, and I cannot pronounce the name, but I'll spell it for you. It's the buttercream color. It's Xanthos. And I will tell you that I grew those last year for the first time, and I was a little afraid at first because the description that we got with the seed made me think it's described as being 20 to 25 inches tall. Friends, I will tell you that ours were well over 36 inches last year. But this is what comes from the hybridizer is 20 to 25 inches. Um, I was quite smitten with how well they germinated and how well they grew. But I find that to be the overall experience with Cosmo. So I would say go for your favorite color. And I will say that these buttercream colored ones are on the shorter side compared to those that get 60 inches. So that in itself may make it a little easier for someone to start. So I love them.
That's nice. I haven't grown that variety yet, but I may give it a shot this year. So
Love them.
I've grown I believe they're called the bright lights or something like that, the ones that are yellow and orange, and also the sensation mix ones. And I've loved both of those, so I'm sure these other ones are just as wonderful. So
Yeah, they're all a little different, and that's why we're really growing them all this year so we can do side by side comparisons on the shopping show on Cosmo Week. Whenever that happens, I'm sure we'll have more than one because we'll have to do it again in the fall. Um, but it is just so nice to see what the differences are and how long they last. And I mean, the cupcake, I just can't wait. I've seen cupcake in other people's fields, but I'm growing them all this year. It comes in blush and white. And then how about afternoon white? I mean, we picked up that seed from the recommendation of another farmer, and I just cannot even wait to see. The name is just so awesome.
one other thing, and I'm not sure if you mentioned this earlier or not, or if you've ever done this, but one of my favorite things about Cosmos too is that they can be a good backup greenery filler for bouquets, because the
Yes.
foliage is so light and airy, and it really is kind of a whimsical thing to add to bouquets.
That is really true. And we're going to experiment with that more on a long-term basis, but for sure, for bouquet subscriptions. And for, one thing I've learned about our customers is sometimes they're willing to go with a shorter life. If it's a really wonderful addition to a bouquet, like sweet peas. So yeah, I have heard people doing that, and we're going to try it this year. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't have any other questions. I think this is, cosmos are an interesting group of flowers in that I know I've seen on social media before that some people find that they don't produce the way they're expecting if they over fertilize or something like that, and so I know that they've got some quirks, and so I encourage people to refer back to this conversation. Lisa provided some good information, but also I would like to encourage you to hop over to our private Facebook group, The Flower Farmer Show. If you are a flower farmer or aspiring to become one, you can join that private Facebook group, and we like to continue conversations over there. So as you start to grow your cosmos, and if additional questions come up, you can always hop over there and ask that group. It's a big group, but it's very active, and it's a great place to do those types of follow-up discussions.
Jesse, that's a great point. And what I'd like to say about that is I think that if folks will really pay attention, if you've already planted cosmos, really take note of what their production is like, and then plant some midsummer, that 3 months before your last frost date or your first frost date, and see what the difference in their performance is as the days start to get shorter. Because I have experienced just slow repeats. And that's what makes it not such a top of my list cut flower. But I've also discovered it really has a lot to do with our timing of when we plant them. People want to plant them at the crack of spring, but in fact, we may be better off to let that one sit on the back burner and let it be our May or June or even early July seed to start, to get the biggest bang for our buck.
And so someone was asking, is there any reason why I shouldn't direct seed cosmos right now in zone 8A? It's been very hot.
Sure. So, I mean, we just don't direct sow anything in spring and summer because of the incredible weed pressure and the need to keep them moistened. It's just a lot more work for us to direct sow. We do it on occasion when we get pushed into a corner where we think that it's going to be quicker to direct sow than to start them indoors and plant them out. But it doesn't often work out that way. But for us, it is the labor of you got to hoe the whole time you're waiting for that seed to sprout and grow big enough. And so that is the only challenge. But I know a lot of people, gardeners particularly, direct sow, but that's why we don't direct sow. It's just more labor.
Right. And, I think it's important for everyone to keep in mind that weed seeds are already planted before you can plant your cosmos. So they will get the jump start, even if are very diligent.
Not yeah, and they're native, so they're like they got the head start on you, more so even. Yeah, so totally there with you. And it's so funny, about every 5 or 6 years I'll have a lapse of maybe judgment or memory. And I can remember one time we poked, we have, I used the Bio 360 biodegradable film, and we had a bed that was made that didn't have anything planted in it yet. And nobody started the midsummer last planting of zinnias, which for us is huge. I mean, we have a lot. We were just so far behind, right? So I can remember telling Grace, one of my cousins that worked with us, I said, Grace, just go out there and poke holes, do your 4 rows, 6 inches apart, and go ahead and put 2 or 3 seeds in each hole. Normally, of course, 1 transplant would go in each hole. And I said, what have we got to lose at this point? Well, let me just tell you what we've got to lose, friends. We had to whole weed that hull while we were waiting for those seeds to germinate for like once a week for like 4 weeks. I mean, it was so labor intensive that I was just so surprised versus walking out there with a transplant that we poke a hole, put the transplant in, and typically within 10 days or so, at least the hole where the plant is planted is pretty much shaded over. You know, the competition has already begun between the plant and the weed seeds. But I just remember that was the weediest patch of zinnias we ever grew on my farm, and the most labor went into it. So that was my last memory lapse of saying, all right, let's direct seed and see what happens. But it's different for different folks with different methods. But that's what I find to be true. Well, thank you, Jesse, so much for joining us here. And friends, I am just here to say I cannot wait to share Cosmos in real life with you. If you want to grab the phone app and join us for the shopping show, which always includes sometimes special products that you won't find over on our web store, new introductions, new bundles, new collections. And then sometimes we have special offers that you just won't get anywhere else that are only good during the live show until 8 a.m. the next morning. So there's a lot of fun stuff. We love sharing and to be able to share in real time, either a chore I'm doing on the farm or the flowers or both. We just are really excited about it. So when you get the phone app, you can go in and actually watch the last 2 weeks. And we just invite you to join us and would love to see you there.
All right. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us here today. Lisa, thank you as always for sharing your knowledge with us. And we look forward to talking to you again next week.
Ciao.
Okay, welcome back. I've included a link in the show notes to the page on our website where you can see all the varieties of Cosmos that Lisa is currently growing and also offering for sale as seeds. I also included links to our great new live shopping show phone app. Whether you use Apple or Android phones, the link is there for you to go directly to the app if you want to check it out and download it. There's also a link to Lisa's club on the Clubhouse app. We're over there live on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern if you want to join us sometime. If you like what you're hearing here on the Field and Garden podcast, we'd love it if you'd tell a friend about us and leave a review for us wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Jessie from the Gardener's Workshop, and I hope you have a great day.